Brendan Schaub is arguably the most hated man in all of comedy, but if you ask Brendan, he'll say people hate him because he looks like the guy who used to bully you in high school. He was rubbing elbows with some of the biggest names in the LA comedy scene after only doing stand-up for a few years, and he's successful, and people are jealous of that, which may be true. Or maybe it's because he's made countless enemies in the comedy space, released the worst rated comedy special of all time, twice, threatened to beat up people who hate on him, has copyright striked multiple videos critical of him while claiming to support free speech and be anti-cancel culture, sued a small YouTuber, threatened to sue other comedians for talking bad about him, threatened to destroy his quote-unquote friend's career to distract from the fact that he was exposed for cheating on his wife, after he had attempted to hit on said friend's wife while he was married with kids, all of which has culminated in a subreddit of over 70,000 people whose sole goal is to make fun of and expose him. Yeah, maybe that's why people hate Brendan Schaub.
Dicey! Whoa!
Before we get into the video, I just want to thank today's sponsor, Bespoke Post. Bespoke Post is a monthly membership club delivering awesome boxes of top shelf goods from under-the-radar brands, and it's free to join. So every month they introduce people to new products that can range from outdoor gear, barware, clothing, and even more. What you do is fill out a preference quiz, and Bespoke Post will show which boxes are good for you. All of the boxes have around a $70 retail value, but only cost $49. For this video, Bespoke Post sent me the Parked, the Weekender, and the Frontier boxes. The Parked is this camping chair that I'd been long in need of for a while. I'm a big outdoors guy. The Weekender is this sweet bag. Works perfect for going to the gym or if you're going on a small trip. And the Frontier box, which is made up of lots of different things like a knife and a journal, etc. So to get 20% off your first box at Bespoke Post, click the link in the description and enter code GHOSTGUM20 at checkout, or go to bespokepost.com/GHOSTGUM20. The Peter Principle. The idea that somebody can be promoted to a role in which they are incompetent based off prior success. Anybody familiar with Brendan Schaub will assume he is a perfect example of the Peter Principle. You are wrong. That would imply that he was any good at the jobs he did beforehand. Brendan is a modern day Renaissance man. He's done it all. Football player, MMA fighter, comedian, podcaster, and even a CEO. Jack of all trades, master of none. His NFL career didn't go as planned. In fact, he never even made an NFL team that wasn't a practice squad. He put up these numbers in college football, which for those of you not familiar with football, this is a pretty bad stat line for one game, let alone an entire college career. So after realizing his NFL career was going nowhere, he took up MMA and had a bit of success, competing on The Ultimate Fighter and actually being ranked top 10 in the heavyweight division. His career highlight was arguably knocking out a way past his prime MMA legend in Mirko Cro Cop. Even though any MMA fan will tell you the division was very top heavy at the time, it's still impressive. But he's not known for this. He was known for getting knocked out in spectacular fashion.
Dazed, yep. Good right hand by Schaub. Schaub's out! He's out! And it is all over! And oh yeah, he's out. Brendan is fighting the invisible man.
After suffering more brain punishment than any normal human should, Joe Rogan had him on his podcast and basically told him to quit fighting in what's known as the talk.
If you had a wrestling match with Cain Velasquez, how well do you think you'd do?
Straight up wrestling?
Yeah.
I think people would be surprised.
Really? You think so?
Mm-hmm.
I think you'd be surprised. I really do. I think he'd fuck you up.
At this time, Brendan had a semi-successful podcast called The Fighter and the Kid with comedian and alleged rapist Bryan Callen, as well as being friendly with alleged statutory rapist Chris D'Elia and comedian Theo Von, who seems like a pretty good guy actually. Now, with the support of Rogan, Brendan could try his transformation from fighter to podcaster/comedian. And success. You gotta give Brendan some credit. He actually managed to turn this into the most successful point of his life. He started more podcasts, was booking comedy shows, and inked a contract with Showtime. But it was around this time the fame got to him. Brendan went from humble fighter to LA Instagram douche. He began to flex on social media more, bragged about his expensive haircuts, his fancy cars, etc. His podcast appearances lacked any self-awareness. He would brag, flex, and shit talk other people for no reason.
Yeah, he kind of doubled down. If anything, he should, and I've said this from the jump, he should have been fired for having a bad podcast. The problem is it wasn't funny.
All behavior not really suited for a comedian. This is when fans started to turn on him. They felt he was no longer the guy they came to enjoy, but the complete opposite, particularly on his subreddit, which started as a fan forum and slowly morphed into a community that openly mocked Schaub for his douchebaggery. Speaking of, The Fighter in the Kids subreddit is one of the most interesting things I've ever came across. It started as a fan community for the Fighter and the Kid, but as Brendan started exposing himself more, they started by criticizing him and calling him out for the stupid stuff he did. It seemed the more they called him out, the more stupid stuff he would do.
I've made like over 100,000.
Yeah, cool. How many chicks you fuck,
like,
bros?
120K.
0.
It slowly morphed into a community where they roleplay as fry cooks and refer to themselves as homeless cats. This comes from a rant where Brendan shows disgust for people he deems lower than himself, with him claiming their opinions don't matter. This includes a waiter at PF Chang's, homeless people, and cats if they made social media profiles.
I view those people the same I'd view a homeless guy critiquing my art. They do not matter. What do you care? It'd be the same as if a cat created a profile.
Hence, homeless cats who work at PF Chang's. They adopted Shaubinese and Shaubisms as their language by using many of Brendan's CTE slip-ups.
Hey, photographers, you blockbuster. They will remain unanimous, stuff like this, and unanimous. In overtime when they go, this is a war of nutrition.
Basically, the entire purpose of the subreddit was to make fun of him and expose him. But with Schaub signed onto Showtime, chilling with Joe Rogan, and having his own successful podcasts, he was right. In the grand scope, maybe these haters do not matter. Besides, he has his first ever hour-long comedy special coming up with Showtime. You'd be surprised. A reference to the infamous Joe Rogan talk. Now, fans were skeptical as Schaub had only been doing stand-up for a few years max. Many comedians can wait up to 10 years before doing an hour-long special, if they ever do one at all. But Schaub isn't a normal comedian. He's a rich playboy who drives Ferraris and is friends with Joe Rogan. It couldn't fail.
Snake, are you okay? Snake? Snake!
Wow.
Then finally, after 10 minutes, this dude comes out of the bathroom. He's all, "What's up, man? I'm Jamal." He was Asian as shit. Dicey.
I mean, wow.
This giant Asian doctor walks up to him and goes, "Mr. Schaub, sorry for your loss." "Thank you. That makes me feel better. Thank you for that." He goes, "But your lip."
My name is Dr. Greg Shue. I'm a board-certified ophthalmologist. I am the UFC consultant physician.
Now, to be fair, not many people expected this to be good, but let's just say they expected more than open micer material. People hated this special, and from a personal perspective, yeah, it's really bad. It currently sits at a 1.5 out of 10 on IMDb, which was the lowest rated special of all time. This was after attempting to bribe people to leave good reviews in exchange for CBD oil. I'm not joking. It also garnered massive condemnation in the comedy space and the internet.
The fact that the man with the lowest rated ever Showtime special, lowest rated ever in the history of Showtime specials, who had to offer CBD oil for people to give it a better review. The first ever CTE comic, Brendan Schaub, is calling somebody else not funny. Look, please, with a straight face, tell me you think Brendan's funny. Nay, funnier than Shane Gillis.
I'll go ahead. If he said my podcast isn't funny, I'll say that his special was very funny.
You thought having a niche community of homeless cats was bad? Try every comedian in America who's not afraid of Joe Rogan. Now, maybe this could have been a time of reflection for Schaub. We've all done bad things and made mistakes. But instead of understanding it might not have been the best special, he went the opposite. Scorched earth. Copyright striking YouTube videos critical of it, complaining more on his podcast, as previously mentioned, bribing people with CBD oil. Now, this didn't curb the negative reviews. In fact, it ended up just amplifying the criticism and converting more people to being homeless. This is where the downward spiral starts to pick up. But it's not quite at its peak yet. It's clear after this special, if Brendan was bad before this, he's on a new level now.
People say Africa like it's a country. I do it too all the time.
Africa is a country.
That's a big continent.
Yeah, but it's like I'm American, but I'm from fucking Denver.
He still had the ego from before, but with less of the clout. This new attitude can be perfectly summarized in this saga here. Brendan and his crewmate Chappelle have a foot race for $1,000. Chappelle is clearly beating Brendan, so what does Brendan do? Fakes an injury. But not just any injury. A blown hamstring. Actually, scratch that. 2 blown hamstrings. This was broken down by a sports medicine cat who proved there was almost zero chance that Brendan blew both of his hamstrings at the same time and was able to stand up after. He also brought this up to an NFL Pro Bowler, Taylor Lewan, a man who has dealt with his fair share of injuries, and look at this reaction.
I blew out both hamstrings.
No, how do you blow out both?
Just life, dude.
It's a lie so easily disproven that it's embarrassing, which brings me to another reason people hate Brendan. He is a pathological liar. Some examples: booking the O2,
I did the O2.
Really?
Yeah. Be cool, man.
getting complimented by Adam Sandler at the movie theaters,
That guy looks like Adam. He came up to me and was like, "You're that funny guy that kicks ass." I didn't know what to say.
getting recognized by Floyd Mayweather as the white boy who works too much.
I knew I worked too much because when I saw Floyd, I was like, "I don't know who I am." He goes, "Oh, you that white boy that works too much."
That's what he said?
Yeah.
Just to name a few. There are so many lies Brendan has told that you can just search Brendan Schaub lying on YouTube and be met with hours of footage. It was around this time that Brendan either quit Showtime or was shown the door. The details aren't really known, but I'd take a swing and say that he was let go for not being a draw. Either way, he started his own network called Thick Boy Network, which basically had him do the exact same things he was doing on Showtime, but with his own studio now and a way smaller budget. But things were not super controversial at this time, at least compared to what they would be. Until a video got leaked of Schaub seemingly giving his number to a girl at a party. Keep in mind, Schaub is married with 2 kids. So a YouTuber re-uploaded this clip of Schaub, and in response, Schaub struck down the guy's video, struck his channel, and sued him for copyright. This is legitimately one of the scummiest things you can do. To abuse the copyright system and legal system to silence somebody for exposing something you did. I mean, it doesn't get much worse than that. But Brendan is a free speech warrior and cancel culture hater, which is why he also struck down a YouTuber named Speaking for Funny for ripping his special apart, and copyright struck a YouTuber named Megadan for making a Jim Can't Swim parody of him.
Yeah, of course.
The suspect has morphed himself into this abnormal and extremely creepy character. Whether it's a strategy or some sort of mental breakdown is unclear.
Prior to this video, he'd also struck down Beige Frequency's video for making fun of him and exposing him like any free speech warrior would. I'll post updates on my Twitter, but if this video goes down, you'll know why. Of course, these copyright claims had the opposite intended effect, just amplifying the criticism towards Schaub and inadvertently boosting the videos he struck down. But this was Schaub at his breaking point. Keep in mind, the Fighter and the Kids subreddit has been documenting all of this as it was happening and making memes accordingly. Oh, but ladies and gentlemen, it gets worse. This is where the spiral picks up into its final form, and it all begins with the incident known as the Trug Walk. Trash Tuesday, a podcast of 3 LA female comedians. On one episode, they alluded to a married comedian who was not good at comedy, asking the host Annie if he could walk them to their truck.
I had a guy that was like, "Why don't you walk me to my truck?" This married guy, where I'm like, and we know him. I'm not gonna say who it is, but he's like, "Why don't you give me a walk? Why don't you you should walk me to my truck?" I'm like, "So what, I can blow you?"
Although no name was said, the detectives at PF Chang's, aka the Fighter and the Kids subreddit, figured it had to be Brendan. This would be coined by the subreddit as the Trug Wog, or Wog Me to My Trug, and it quickly became one of the biggest memes on the subreddit and spawned countless parody songs. This incident also coincided with the announcement of Brendan's new special, 4 years after his last one. We'll put the Trug Wog to the side for now, but don't worry, we'll come back to it. So, after all this time, Brendan is going to release another special, but this time he's doing it himself.
You know, to all these major networks, I'm not calling anybody out, but I'd meet with everybody. You name it, I met with them, man. They made offers.
After getting all the offers from the major networks, he decided he's going to do it alone and put it on YouTube. The Gringo Poppy, releasing April 28th, 2022. So obviously, as comedians do, Brendan had to do a press tour for the special, starting with Logan Paul's Impulsive podcast, in which they didn't even put him in the title. They also openly mocked him to his face and cut the episode short.
Okay, so this will be coming out 2 days. Oh, awesome. Where is it coming out?
YouTube. Decided to do YouTube.
You're a YouTube. Are you a vlogger?
No, not at all. No.
You do YouTube? We gotta go to dinner.
Wait, right now?
I think so.
A 42-minute boys only episode? Is that how long?
So he was at the Improv, right?
and me and him are, just chopping up, and he goes, "You think I'll?"
We gotta go to dinner, bro.
He then went on the Flagrant 2 podcast where he got directly called out about the Trugwog.
Did you try to wog Annie Letterman to your truck?
No, it doesn't make sense. No, it doesn't make sense. No.
Okay, so then follow up. Why does it not make sense? Why does that make sense?
It's her perspective.
An incident he'd been trying to ignore for quite some time. Keep in mind, it still wasn't confirmed if this was Brendan yet. Until this point. He'd go on Rogan after this, and it's not really memorable apart from Rogan not knowing that Brendan owned Thick Boy Network, despite Brendan claiming they talked every day in the past. But all of this could be water under the bridge if the special was good. So?
I'll bake some Mexican cookies, and you go over there, I'm like, what the fuck's a Mexican cookie? What are you talking about? It's like a chocolate chip with sauce all over it? What are you talking about?
My God, it's bad. It's so bad. Like, it's somehow worse than the first one, despite having 4 more years of experience. It is significantly worse than You'd Be Surprised. It's basically 24 minutes of the same Mexican stereotype jokes you've heard a million times, sprinkled with some outdated COVID material and a brutally obvious laugh track.
At night, we'd fuck each other.
This is when shit hit the fan for Schaub. Comedians of all backgrounds started coming out and shitting on Schaub.
I take back everything I said. I fucking hated Brendan Schaub's special. He can suck my dick. Andy Letterman can suck my dick. Dude. Brian Callen can suck my dick. He'll probably do it without consent.
No, you're funny.
Brendan Schaub used to be an MMA fighter, and now he's on Joe Rogan. Yeah, this nigga is awful. He was awful in MMA, and he is awful at stand-up comedy.
Gringo Poppy.
Kind of brilliant, kind of brilliantly funny in a way that no comedy special has ever been. It's mysterious in a way because you're looking at it and you're going like, there's a lot of choices made and you don't know why those choices were made.
So you didn't like the special?
No, of course not. Who did? Nobody. If anybody says they did, they're lying.
Now, previously, Schaub had been able to use Rogan as a backup so nobody could criticize him. This wasn't the case anymore, and people noticed it.
I don't know if you guys have ever heard Brendan Schaub speak, but he has the perfect voice for how dumb he is.
After all this, Schaub put his foot down and said, enough. Now, remember the Trugwog saga? That kind of started all of this. It was around this time the Trash Tuesday women came out and claimed a comedian with the initials BS was alluding to suing them.
A certain walk in a certain vehicle, walk to a vehicle, and I want to say the initials are BS, but he did pass away recently in a hotel room, so I don't want to out him.
It's potentially we were being threatened, a lawsuit.
This is Brendan at his absolute breaking point. He was coming for everybody, innocent or not. Which brings us into the final chapter of this story, the Bobby Lee incident. Bobby Lee is a comedian who worked on Mad TV and runs a podcast with his girlfriend Kalila, who is also on Trash Tuesday. They both went on the H3 podcast and claimed Brendan Schaub and Brian Callen knew they were the ones behind the Fighter and the Kids subreddit.
We have 50 pages of...
No, they said 300 pages.
Whatever, of evidence.
Dude, Brendan Schaub can't even read, bro. How the fuck that guy bringing 300 pages of anything?
He says that he has proof that me, for the last 5 or 6 years, that I've been on Reddit. You know what I mean? So he was going, you're doing this, we can trace the URL back to your house, and you're the leader of this Reddit group. I'm like, bro.
Allegedly, Brendan had 300 pages of evidence that proves Bobby Lee is the CEO of PF Chang's. They allegedly said that they were going to ruin Bobby Lee's career and even brought up Joe Rogan. Now, the blowback from this was insane. Even worse than the Gringo Poppy. At least the Gringo Poppy was just not funny. This seemed like a legit case of bullying, blackmail, and harassment. Brendan was getting openly shit on even more than normal. So Brendan went on Tiger Belly to clear the air, which made him look like more of an idiot.
Callen calls to apologize to Bobby for the bullying, threats, etc.
Can we clear bullying meaning define bullying for me?
Keep in mind, all of this started from the Trugwog and him allegedly trying to cheat on his wife. Also, allegedly, the 300 pages of evidence was a zoomed-in screenshot of HTML code with a Tiger Belly email.
So I also wanted to clarify for the audience that watched the Tiger Belly episode that Schaub said that he had like 300 pages of evidence against us. What we saw was a very zoomed-in photo of HTML codes, numbers, no context on a paper, and then he showed me another page, all HTML code, no context, completely zoomed in, and it said Robert Lee, which is not even Bobby's like government name.
And to this day, nobody has seen those 300 pages. Many comedians came out in support of Bobby Lee, including the one Joe Rogan.
Because there's been a lot of drama lately, and one of the things that happened was somehow or another my name got entered into this thing, and I don't want to get into it in too much detail, but I'm like, okay, I must call Bobby, and I called him, and I said, listen, I don't know what kind of, I'm just hearing about this nonsense now, but I love you. I would never let anybody talk bad about you.
All of this, the lawsuits, the threats, the bullying, has left Brendan Schaub the most hated man in comedy. A man so incapable of self-reflection that instead of realizing that people dislike him for his behavior, he thinks people dislike him because they're being manipulated and masterminded by a man who allegedly can't use a computer. He has essentially let the trolls win. It's a Reddit community where they watch a guy with narcissistic personality disorder tank his reputation, brand, and career through his own hubris and redaction. He's become a lolcow in every sense of the word. Honestly, if Brendan had a bit of humility, kindness, and self-awareness, he could have utilized this golden ticket given to him by Rogan, and he would have had it all. Instead, he's a lying hypocrite with zero empathy, morals, and self-awareness. And with his expensive taste, lack of change or effort in his content, Thick Boy Industries being essentially a pyramid scheme, and recent firing of employees, it seems the Schaub house of cards might come falling down sometime soon.
Yo, listen up. Here's the story, better read that. He was passing notes, but all he got back was the throat slash. So now he's walking along to his truck and he's mad, cause everybody's laughing at him. Maybe he's gonna sue. What would you do? I don't know. Who is he? Who are you? But I know what Bopper would do. He'd call his Bopper and sue. Cause that's just what Boppers do when they don't get walked to the truck. Would you want me to my truck? Would you want me to my truck? Would you want me to my truck? I can't talk but I truck walk. Would you want me to my truck? Would you want me to my truck? Would you want me to my truck?